understanding the gift that comes with putting energy into the skill building effort of knowing when and when not to be agile, of when and when not to expand your boundary to hold more space for people who have earned it versus people who feel entitled to it because they've known you so long. When was the last time we allowed ourselves to imagine life bigger, more beautiful? Bigger doesn't mean more materials. Bigger doesn't mean more Instagram followers. Bigger means as big and as bold and as beautiful as you need to feel peace.
Hey guys, welcome to episode number 196 of the Game On Girlfriend podcast, where today I am bringing you a very special guest. Her name is Naketa Ren Thigpen, and she is the #1 relationship and balance advisor in the world. She is extraordinary. Now, to call her a relationship advisor, I think is probably just skimming the surface. You're going to hear right out of the gate how extraordinary this woman is and the work that she's done on herself to be able to bring this work to other people. So often, especially in today's social media world, you'll see experts, right? You'll see the gurus pop up, people who are like, yeah, I can do this, I can do that. I'll teach you this, I'll teach you that. And they just did it 3 months ago. Do you know what I'm talking about? It's a little scary what's happening out there sometimes, especially for business coaches. We're all like, what are you talking about? You need to be an expert in what you're teaching. You need to understand what you're talking about. And the second you hear Naketa open her mouth and start sharing, you're going to relax because you're going to go, oh, this is a woman who knows what she's talking about. She's been there. She's experienced it. She understands. And I think that's really important in today's world. There's so many people you could do business with, so many people that you could reach out to as coaches, but rarely is there someone that you can really just sort of like take a deep exhale and trust. And I think what she's doing with her work in teaching people to be, she calls it being lazy, right? Which I think is funny. What she actually is talking about is being intentional, about taking time to breathe, paying attention to which emotions are pulling at you in that moment, to understand what you might be able to release, where you can expand next, and then to understand that that's a cycle in and of itself. One of the things I hope you really listen for in today's podcast episode is how she talks about divorcing yourself, which of course made my ears perk up. I was like, how do you divorce yourself? And then she explained it. And I was like, that is genius. Let's all go do that. So that's something I really hope you listen for today. And I hope you come at this podcast with, how do I describe this? With a feeling of openness and with a sense of grounding, because it's really profound what she shares. You're going to have to be open for it. All right. So pop in those earphones and let's get to it. Naketa, welcome to the Game On Girlfriend podcast. I have to tell you something. I've been all about relationships this year, all sorts of different relationships. And I am so excited to jump in with you today. Thank you for being here.
I am more than thrilled. I've been waiting for this opportunity with you. So let's get it.
Oh, I'm going to cry. We haven't even started. I'm already crying. It's good stuff. It's good stuff. So I have to ask you, how in the world did you get started in this business? Why is this what you do? Tell us all the things.
I am just crazy enough to do it. And so that's part of it. Full context. And all of these things remain true, even though I don't operate in this way. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, psychotherapist, trauma specialist, sexologist, relationship expert, metaphysician, and so many other hats that are tucked under this crown of brilliance that I wear. And I was all of that for almost 2 decades before I became an entrepreneur. Today, at the time that we're recording this, this is our 12th year anniversary.
Oh,
we're officially a business tween. I'm so proud of us.
Wow, you should be. That is impressive, man. I always say we get over that 10-year mark. I'm like, woo! Party. Like that's a big deal. Wait a sec. I'm sorry, because I'm trying to pick my jaw up off the floor here. That was a long list of things that you have studied or know how to do. Did you just do those for organizations, for other people? Like, how did that look for you?
Yeah. So pre-entrepreneurship, because prior to that, I never had one thing. I was always just forever learner still today. I still maintain all of those licenses. I still have to do all of those 100+ CEUs every biannual year. Like I'm very serious about the tears that I spent in earning it with those late nights. Prior to that, I worked in the emergency room for 10 years, specifically in trauma, sexual assault response, hematology, special delivery. Bereavement was a huge part of what I did with mamas and their babies and their little ones. Alongside of that, I did military EAP, so a lot of counseling for active military members. Alongside of that, I also worked in crisis centers for community behavioral health. I was also director of outcome programs in behavioral health and training, a support center for child advocacy. Like I wore a lot of different hats. Part of it was undiagnosed ADD, like that part is real. And a lot of it was because I truly, at the core, really wanted to understand why humans do human things. I just needed some clarity on why we were so prone to self-sabotage, prone to pass on that sabotage through hurt to other people. I grew up in a house of dysfunction, of sexual abuse, violence, emotional abuse, verbal abuse, you name it. I did not wake up to affirmations of, you're the best, you're the greatest, this is what you can do. I woke up to my step-grandfather throwing my grandmother across the room. Like that was our alarm in the morning. So you can imagine my nervous system was frayed as a child.
Absolutely.
And I hid behind people pleasing and trying to fix. That was what I wanted to do because I was ultimately trying to fix the brokenness. Ethereally, that was my life. I was trying to fix the mother who abandoned me and left me with the very person who assaulted her, who continued the assault with me. I wanted to fix my father being in and out of prison and all the broken promises and leaving me on the step like one of those kids in the movies, like, I'm just waiting, I'm going to stay out here because he said he was coming, right? Like I had all of the layers of everything broken you saw in all the movies that made you cry, except for I didn't cry. I did what so many of us females that grow up in our girliness and our womanhood, I became an Olympic champion at compartmentalizing. It was like the gift that did not give back when I needed to release it, but it was something that I became very strong at. So I could go into emergency rooms and sit on the floor with people who had been severely assaulted and were dealing with tremendous things. And my heart could be so big with them because I understood, but I hadn't processed my pain. My pain was so normal. Like it was not just second skin, it was top skin for me. So when I felt it from someone else, there was no desensitizing. There was very relating, but I never made it about me. It was, I get you, and I understand how painful this is. And I couldn't relate to feeling the feels of the pain in that moment because I never allowed myself to do it at that time in my adulthood. I would often compare myself to like a ninja that is very skilled with all these weapons, but doesn't realize that she's cutting herself, like in the practice of all the stuff that we do. Now, all those tools came in so much helpful handiness, if you will, when I decided to be brave enough to do my own work. And my work started well before I became an entrepreneur, but it was scary. It looked like 3 intense years of multi-week therapy and spiritual counseling. And the mothers, as I call them, the women in my life who gave me pieces of themselves that ultimately created the whole space that I needed to serve my mother wound that I was dealing with. Like I needed that for me. I didn't know it, obviously, like this is Monday morning quarterbacking the Sunday night game, I think is what they call it. But in the moment, I felt love. So a lot of adverse childhood experience scores, the ACE scores, that getting a high number is bad, I had the highest number. I had experienced every single trauma, 18 major traumas before I was 24. We're not even talking about life after and marriage and babies and all the other things that we have. But I had love too. I had women who would do small things like, hey, kid, do you want to come here and get a hot dog? Me? Sure, right? Like I had that moment. To my vivacious mother-in-law to this day, who didn't know I was going to marry her son when we met at 13, but she was structure that I didn't have, and not in a violent way. Like I grew up with very rigid rules. So there was plenty of firmness, but there was no love there. There wasn't the agility, the softness that needed to be there in the room as well. And my mother-in-law, Viola Thigpen, love her to life because she will cuss me out real juicy good, like I'm one of her firstborn. Like she will do it in a minute, and she does it with love. She was the first one to say, like, I get, without knowing all the details, that you're coming from a special harmful place in your life, but you still won't talk about your mama in this house like this with me. You still will be respectful, right? Like she was the first person that didn't allow me to just go, woe is me, when I wanted to have those moments. She was like, you can share, but you're going to do it respectful. You don't know what your mother's story is. You don't know what she went through. You don't know her why. And I didn't connect to it in the moment. Obviously, I was like 13 in a pain. But at the same time, I knew that there was something brilliant about what she was sharing with me in that moment. All of those pieces and all of those people and all of that pain, the change agents that brought trolling and hindering and competition and competitiveness and envy and all the friends that were there for their own devious, all of those were beautiful parts of my story that I am so thankful for, and I don't regret any of it.
Jeez. Wow. I mean, I can get why you ended up getting all those degrees and all those certifications. I think, one of the things I'm learning more and more as I deal with and work with more and more women, especially inside the Abundance Academy, right? Because older wounds tend to come up as we're looking to expand. I mean, hello. I think of it now, I'm like, yes, that makes sense. Right. But as we're continuing to do this, I think this deeper understanding in myself as well, that when a child's sense of safety and self are threatened and or shattered at those young ages, the ability to be adaptable, meaning the way you're describing you were with people with traumas, I'm like, yes, I know that exact feeling. I think it's one of the reasons I started coaching, right? Because it's so easy for me to get in there with people and it's never about me.
Yes.
Right. And I think I just totally got that. And that wonderful skill. Like, oh my God, I'm so grateful I have this skill and the work that comes behind it for all of us to understand that adaptability, while a very useful tool, is just that, it's a tool, and that there comes a time, I think, for all of us where we need to figure out how to put it down, and that we don't have to be adaptable in every situation, right? Like, no, that does not work for me. And no, I am not going to continue to do this the way you expect me to do this. Things are about to change, right? And that level of development coming on the heels of extraordinary adaptability is so important, I think, for women especially. I'm finding women, there are men too, I'm starting to see come out of the woodwork as well, starting to talk as we're releasing this toxic masculinity and the white patriarchy and all the things that are starting to kind of fizzle a little, thank goodness. We're starting to see the humanity behind all of these different tools we've picked up in order to survive other people's hurt.
Yes. You said so many mic drop moments in that I'm like trying to keep myself in the seat from like all the things. Yes, yes, and yes to all of it. Highlighter on understanding the gift that comes with putting energy into the skill building effort of knowing when and when not to be agile, of when and when not to expand your boundary to hold more space for people who have earned it versus people who feel entitled to it because they've known you so long, or y'all went to school together, or the stories. Like, there's so many that I've personally experienced, as well as so many of the families that we work with. There's a highlighter in what you said there, the few brave men. And I say few only because men are championed for not being vulnerable.
Correct.
Which is the opposite of strength. And we know from Brene Brown's research and so many other things that are out there that is evidence-based that the cure to shame is vulnerability, right? Like, the way that you get to grow through the pain that has tortured you and cemented with all the lava inside and burned your insides of your relationships and your possibilities is cured when you are vulnerable. And that's not necessarily going on Instagram Live and sharing all of your mama's business, right?
Right. There is that too. Like, there's that, but there's also that fake, you guys, it's like, and that is, and watching that happen as well. I think, God, there's so much to learn here, isn't there? Like, with all this, I love that you said that part though, because there's healing, right? And then there's performing a healing, right? As opposed to just doing the work that needs to be done and supporting each other while we do that. But I found it's actually kind of quiet for the most part. I mean, I don't know if you've had that. That's been my experience. I don't mean to put that out there like that's everyone's.
No,
a little bit more quiet. Yeah.
I think for most people willing to be honest about the messiest part, like, I tell anyone who's working with me, we're going to have fun. We're going to be creative and adventurous and play. But I mean, I'm helping couples get orgasms. Like, how could we not have fun doing that, right? Like, we're going to have all of the fun, and this is going to be very messy because in order to get to the root of what has really been impacting your life, your business, your ability to stop being, submissive to your siblings just because they've had a certain space in the authority line, but they actually have not earned your respects, like all of the things that we're doing, not just in our intimate relationships from a romantic perspective, but every relationship that matters, you got to follow that thread. And it's going all the way through those early scripts, which weren't actually created by you. They were created by the people around your parents, whoever your guardians were. And you absorb them because as little people, one thing we are really good when we're little people, and we might not have the words and the verbiage yet, but we listen. We feel the energy. I don't understand what's saying, but I know that made me anxious. Might not even know what the word anxious means, but that's what I'm feeling in my body, right? Like, our kids, they are molded sponges. And I don't mean mold like bad bacteria. Like they're moldable. We shape them and they shift based on everything we allow in their space, according to their gates, their ear gate, eye gate, senses, all of it. It matters. And when you're not there to protect as much as you can, we're human. We got to work. We got to do things. There's only so many things that you can do. And keeping your kids in a bubble isn't going to help either. But being able to take those teachable moments and explain, like those teachable moments helped me so much. I didn't get them as early as I wish I could have, but when they came, I was like soaking them up like water. My husband and I were just joking. We're 29 years together this year. And we were just joking. Well, he was really joking because he was just listening to something. I don't know, something I did somewhere. And we are very humble about like, yes, we're privileged. We take all the things. I'm so grateful for all the interviews. And what really matters is right up in here, right? Like intentionally selfish here. But he was just saying like, Bunny, I was just listening to whatever you did. You're really brilliant. And, he knows that that's a thing because I've heard that a lot. And when I was suffering and very overwhelmed with the healing messiness of the mess, the pain that you feel when you're in that quiet surrender. And when people would say that, it would like almost be a trigger, like, you're calling me brilliant, but you don't know all the broken, right? Like, but not saying,
no, there can be
gracious.
It's almost that, I mean, I think that's what people call imposter syndrome, right? Like,
yes,
I think it's deeper than that. It doesn't feel as like, oh my God, I can't believe I got promoted. It's much deeper. Like, oh my God, if you only knew, right? Like that kind of a feeling. Yeah. To feel that
visceral in your body, because you almost want to take them to the side and explain, but not everyone has earned the right to hear your pain either. So that's another thing that I just had to learn, because once I started being open, oh my goodness, you ask me anything, I'm like, want my social security number, want to know what's in our bank accounts, I would just answer for, wanting to be more open because I hadn't been. It had been stuffed and compartmentalized for so long. So that was kind of another growing. But when he said it, now, and of course, it's not a trigger. It's something I embody. Like, I get it. Like, yes, I am brilliant, right? I'm dope. And sometimes I doubt, like I can call it all in. But when he was saying it because of whatever some interview or something he was listening to, and he's like, I didn't really see this coming when we were in high school. You weren't that girl. It's like, that's true. We went to high school together. And I was cheerleading and track and doing all the things, but I was also sassy, and grades were like, all right. I mean, I showed up to class. I turned in my paper. What? Like, it wasn't right. It wasn't a super focused, the way we would want our kids to be. It wasn't a focused, nerdy behavior in that way. I wasn't the straight A student in high school or before then. My daughter freaks out if she gets a B. And I'm like, girl, what is wrong with you? Like, them people would be happy that you showed up, right? Like, that's my mentality. And she's very different. My son, who's almost 27, definitely gets the laid back. I mean, I didn't fail. Y'all didn't have to pay for me to take that class again. That was very much the energy that I was in. And then I became sharper and more focused, more angry, actually, because I didn't allow myself to be truly angry. There was a lot of anger inside, but I didn't allow it. And once I allowed it, it fueled me until it didn't. So to your point about those survival skills, like when do they start to hinder you at some point? But my husband and I had our son, our firstborn, at a very young age. We were in college. And my anger was, I will not be a statistic. I won't do it. That's the setup. That's the okie doke. That's what people are expecting. So because of that, I won't do it. And I finished school early and triple majored and did all the things. Like, I went overachiever.
Went the other way. Right. Well, but that's also part of, I think what you're pointing to, that's so smart. Gosh, I just have a feeling it's going to help somebody. I had that, when you have that feeling, someone listening is going to like this, but the adaptability of never being angry, that's another one, right? Because anger makes other people uncomfortable. So you're not allowed to be angry, but then using that to fuel yourself, but also watching that fuel runs out.
Yes.
Right. But that it can also hurt you when you do it, because you go so far extreme the other way. I'm saying we all go so far the other way when we're fighting against something we don't want to process.
Yeah.
And I think it's one of the best signals. I'd love to know, how you work with people, like this intentional selfishness. I really want to hear about, because I have a feeling there's like this desire to heal, but fear of what it's going to bring up. And so kind of creating the space for yourself to say, whoa, I'm watching myself go way far over here to the point that I'm about to drop dead, but I'm going to show you wrong, right? Like that kind of a push. Like, how do we provide that space for ourselves to recognize when we're in in that kind of fighting reaction mode.
Yeah.
And is that part of the intentional selfishness that you talk about, or is that something that's completely different?
No, it's definitely embedded. I was looking for another word, but that's the word that I'm going to go with, because it depends on where they're coming from, right? Like if you're a individual human, a potent human, which happens to be a woman founder and entrepreneur, just saying, because we're the most potent, in my opinion. We're the birth givers of the world, literally and figuratively. But if you come in and you're like, I'm ready for love. I am not in my forever love partnership. I am already dope in whatever my career, business, whatever that is. And you have all the goods that you're highlighting, but you can admit that there's a chasm between good and bliss, right? And good and great. Those are my people. Like that's where I want to work. I don't want you to be necessarily knocking on the door of divorce in that moment, in that way, unless that just happens to be the life. But I'm not calling in those people. I will work with some of those people, but I'm not calling them in. I'm calling in that woman, that male human that is really looking for a space to go to their next level of actualization so they can be whole and not repeat what we call in Black community, Black and brown community calls generational curses. So you're not passing that down, whether you have seeds from your womb or not. You're impacting those other 12 women that did not give birth to me. They impacted me. They could have impacted me with their trauma just as easily as they could impact me with their love. And I want people to leave these imprints from their wholeness. And that wholeness is what I'm helping them do. So that looks like, okay, you're in overdrive, overachiever mode right now. Let me help you get a little lazy. And I say it like tongue in cheek, kind of witty, but it's really the hardest thing for so many of the ambitious humans that I work with is being still. And I don't mean yoga pose, sitting for a massage. That's all great. That's good. I like those things too, but I mean being with yourself, looking at yourself in the mirror, the quiet that you're talking about, to feel all the mess, all the ugly, the tears, the awkward smiling that we do sometimes when we're uncomfortable, like all of that stuff, and getting into that space. We practice it. We do mirror work right here, whether we work virtually or in person. I'm sending them boxes of toys, all kinds of toys, so they can get used to themselves. Like if you don't really know your body anymore, if you haven't touched you in a while, if you don't know what you really want because you've been doing what the other person wanted for so long, you feel disconnected. Trauma lives in the body, but so does your joy. And if you're willing to get in touch, whatever awkward way that might be for you, for some it's really touching, and some it's just the touch of sitting and hearing and feeling your heartbeat. And let's do some deep breath work for a couple of seconds before we say, okay, all right, girl, what you do this weekend? Did you give yourself permission to pause? Did you go on that retreat? Did you walk into that new networking event? Like if you were anxious about getting back out there, especially post-COVID, there was a lot of anxiety that was happening for people with all the changes. And not just financially, but just this new world of tech and things that they didn't have to do in that way before, especially for our brave men. They were very uncomfortable with like, what? Put myself out online? Like, what are you talking about? Because they're used to going to the bathrooms, shaking hands and doing billion-dollar deals. That's what they were used to, and the world shut down. So a lot of things had to change for people. So to answer your question, when I'm working with them now, today, it really is bespoke. It's meeting them where they're at. There's no cookie cutter. The foundation of my method is literally called the Joy Map method. That bleeds through everything that I do, but it's not all right, I'm working with you today, Sarah. So today, because this is day 3 of our 30-day program, we have to be here. No, what does Sarah need? What does Sarah need in her body, her mind, and her spirit? How can I help you elevate yourself by edifying you without it being false, pretend, like, girl, you're gorgeous? Because I won't call you gorgeous if you're not. Like, that's not going to come out of Naketa's mouth, right? Like, but we hear that a lot from women where we're giving like these false attributes to each other to break the ice. Like every word of kindness I've ever said about any single human, whether I don't like them anymore or not, I meant it. I meant it in the hour that I said it. Then if I also discovered that you're really some other kind of wolf or some other thing, I meant that too. When I deleted you and released you to the wind, right? Like I mean it. Like I mean what I say and I say what I mean, even if that means apologizing because I didn't hear you as clearly as I needed to because I was so focused on your potential. That has happened. And being intentionally selfish is giving yourself that spaciousness for that intimacy with yourself. So you can gift yourself the room for forgiveness of yourself. Other humans, I hope you get forgiven too. Selfishly, I need to forgive me. I need to forgive me for allowing you in. I need to forgive me for allowing so many years to go by when I was like, don't say that. Don't cut them. Don't cut them that way, Naketa, right? Like when I was trying to pull myself back from hurting you, but instead I hurt it myself. That's what I need to forgive. So having that space to do that kind of surrender work is ultimately what we do with fun and games and toys and retreats and all kinds of things in between. But it really depends on how they're coming. Like if you're really good with relaxing, then we won't focus so much on the lazy. We'll help you balance your overachiever by infusing some micro sabbaticals and other things in your business. So it kind of depends on what you need and what you really, really want.
Yeah. And then that would lead to what your personal intentional selfishness would include.
Yeah.
That's what I'm getting. Okay. All right. So now we've talked about selfishness. You also talk about divorcing yourself. I need to know what this means and what the benefits are. Like, what do you see happen in someone's life or in someone's business when they divorce themselves?
It's an entire paradigm shift, Sarah. It's, we have micro shifts, right? Because hopefully we're growing and we're changing and doing the things. But when your paradigm shift, similar to if I had to compare it to anything, it would be this unsolicited, disruptive gift that was COVID. That pandemic shifted our entire world. That was a paradigm shift. And when you do your work, your real work, it is a paradigm shift for everything that you thought was right is different. The things that you thought were law may not be law anymore. Like your whole entire world shifts because we're getting rid of expired expectations. Somewhere in you, the 20-plus-year-old version of yourself or whatever said, I was going to be here by this age and do this and have these accomplishments. Even if you weren't as granular as check boxes and lists, there was a part of you that moved through life at a certain age where you just assumed that you would be in this other place. And then even though you had other accomplishments and other great things have happened and losses and triumphs and tribulations, there's also a part of you that is completely unkind to yourself because you're not the version you assumed or expected, even planned to be, because life was lifing, right? Life was
true. No, I mean, how could we not have expectations of ourselves? We've been given them since we were tiny, right? Yeah. That makes total sense.
That part, Sarah, you just said it. We were giving them, people were giving us their expectations. They were pouring on us their fears. They were projecting on us the woulda, coulda, shouldas that they didn't do, either by saying, oh no, you can't do them either. Like stay away from this. Like I failed so many times in this business, or I failed so many times trying to be this other version that I've learned to submit. So I'm gonna teach my kids to submit to. Or you go the other way and you push them so hard because you didn't, wouldn't, couldn't do it yourself. And we project that on, and I'm using kids as an example, but this could be your siblings, your neighbors. If you're a teacher or you have an authority position at work, you're bullying your subordinates in this way because you're pushing yourself on them, right? And part of you will feel good if they hit these markers because you take them as your own accomplishments.
Yes.
All of that stuff is happening because of someone else's expectation. And at some point, it became ours. Their dream became either our bondage or it also became our dream. But where were we in the imagination space? Like GIFT is an acronym inside the definition of intentionally selfish. And the first G, well, the only G in GIFT, G-I-F-T, is gratitude that you don't hide behind. The I is imagining bigger. Like when was the last time you imagined? When you were 5, when you were 7, when you were 10? Most of us are over that age right now. So when was the last time we allowed ourselves to really, you know what I mean? Like a couple of decades over. But when was the last time we allowed ourselves to imagine life bigger, more beautiful? Bigger doesn't mean more materials. Bigger doesn't mean more Instagram followers. Bigger means as big and as bold and as beautiful as you need to feel peace.
Oh, I love that. As you need to feel peace.
Yes.
That was your bumper sticker moment, by the way. I feel like I have moments on the podcast where I'm like, we need that on a bumper sticker, but that bigger equals moments of peace. The more that you are at peace with your own life. Oh my goodness. I love that so much. And is that, I mean, finding that peace, right? So is that the process of actually divorcing yourself from all of the expectations that you thought you had or that other people put on you?
Both.
Okay.
It's learning to kind of tweeze between what's mine that also no longer serves this version of myself that I've arrived to, because I believe we arrive, evolve, and expand just to do it again, right? Once you expand it into another moment of arriving. And so it's a cyclical process that's not linear at all, right? And when you do that, you can say, okay, well, 30-year-old Naketa, whose kids were way younger than they are right now, because I'm a grandmama right now and at this point, but 30-year-old Naketa thought that she would have arrived at X point. She didn't. So am I going to penalize 40-plus-year-old Naketa because 30-year-old Naketa didn't meet that? Or are you going to say, well, what feels good to me? Why didn't I arrive there? Was it life is life in situational tsunamis and storms? Or was it because there was a part of me that really wasn't connected to that dream, but it looked good on paper? People patted me on the back when they heard it. Or in my case, someone tried to shame me. It made me angry. So it made me want to do it just to prove that, right? Like, depending on what was happening. And then I had to start as I was doing the work, and the work does not stop. The work just gets different at different levels, because every coach should have a coach. That's all I'm saying. Every teacher should be taught
all the time,
the time, right? But when I started to get older, and I was like, well, how is that anger serving you? Yes, it protected you. It kept you physically safe at certain times, all of that. But at some point, that anger is actually holding you bondage to not being able to move from this space into that next level of evolving or expanding. So what is happening for you there? And a lot of it, for me personally, I talked about divorcing myself in my book, Selfish, which is not a how-to. It is complete vomiting of my life on 2 pages that I hope gives hope and release and victory to someone else. It like truly was. But I talked about what I had to do to look at myself. And my husband is amazing on all the ways. And he also gets on my last good nerve, like all of that too. But part of why he got on my last good nerve was because I had so much unspoken trauma. I wasn't sharing with him. We both had our life, right? Like separate lives, all the things. But I had so much going on that I didn't think that he could handle it. So I did all the compartmentalizing and all the things. And that looked like he would, my husband took care of the kids when we were younger, because I was always out here being an overachiever. Yeah. And he worked and everything too, but that was like his predominant space. And he would be home before me, and he would have my ice water ready for me back then, before my teeth were sensitive and I could do ice water. And he would have that ready, and dinner would be made, and the house would be clean and all of it. And I would walk in just exhausted, burnt out, completely dysregulated, and look for something to point out that needed to be fixed, when all he wanted was to be seen and to be heard and to be appreciated, to be validated, to be edified, and to be desired. And I had no space for that because I wasn't selfish enough to give myself space for it. So I had nothing to pour into him. Yes. And when I started to really look at like, all right, you're about to mess up a good thing. And he's not perfect, but you're about to mess up a good thing. So what's happening? And there was no threat. He was not threatening to divorce me or to leave me or anything. This was me saying something has to change, and being bold enough in my broken state, because I was very, very pieces on the floor, but still working and still slaying and still doing, and no one would have known the difference. You know what I mean? Yes. And I looked at me and said, this isn't good. Love Dean, but forget him. What do you need right now? What do you want? Someone is asking me what I want. Yes, chick, you are asking you, what do you want? And that's really where it began. So I started with a letter. I wrote a vicious letter to the me who was keeping me from growing. Oh, wow. And I cussed her out. Quite frankly, I did. I was very Philly. Like, listen, how this is not what we do. Like, not saying you should talk to yourself that way. But yeah. But I was all the things. And after I finished that letter and I signed divorce, I took a beat. I probably took a couple of days. It might have been closer to a week, in full honesty. And then I wrote myself a new letter. And that new letter wasn't about marrying myself or anything. I would love to say it was like some beautiful tradition. It was really like, okay, now that you did all of that to like get it all out of your system, now I need you to be kind to you. And I need you to give you what no one else, not even your loving, amazing, sexy husband can do. I need you to pour into you in a way that is so deep and so intimate, you would not want this letter to be read. And that's exactly what I did. And I gave myself all the accolades, I loved on me so much, the way you would love on a kid that you knew was an orphan and you just had to take it. Like, I parented my inner child. I did all the things and allowed her to grow up. I did all of that. And what was probably probably 30-page letter on paper, like
Wow.
in a notebook, a black and white 50-cent composition book.
I know those books.
You know what I'm
Yes.
saying? Wasn't fancy.
Wow.
And
30
I
pages.
did all the things. It was at least that. At
So
least that.
that's extraordinary. I've never heard anyone say 30 pages. I'm a little bit in awe right now, but I can get why the transformation was so profound, because you can't go through an exercise like that or work like that and not have it be a paradigm shift.
Yeah.
But I think the other thing that I love the way that you worded, divorcing from the part that was keeping you stuck.
Yeah.
And I mean, I have people name their person. That's
Mhm.
fun names in the year. Mine is Scarlett, by the way. That's her name, in case you were wondering. I don't know why, but that's her name. But this idea that we can actually separate ourselves from that aspect, I just think that is one of the most critical pieces of work that we can do, because I think, and I heard it in your voice too, when you said it, I thought this was so powerful. You recognize it's not you.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like you've
Yeah.
said so many times, like all the other expectations, all the things people put on us, all the things society puts on us, all the expectations. You're a woman, you're going to do invisible, unpaid work for your whole life because the rest of society likes it, right? Like it's like all the stuff, right? That just gets poured on us. And to be like, that is not me.
It is
And
not.
I got that when you said that. Like I yelled at that, like, get away from me. That is not me. And I'm declaring that as so right now. And I love that you use the word divorce for that, because it is to divorce it from you, to move it away from you. God, that is some brilliant work, woman. Brilliant.
Thank you.
Brilliant.
And I take that without trigger. Thank you.
I was just saying, as soon as it came out of my mouth, I'm like, dag nabbit, I couldn't have thought of a different word. Anyway,
No, it's
no,
perfect.
but the work is, it's good stuff. How about we say
No,
that? Really
Thank
good
you.
stuff.
No,
Really
I
good.
love it. And I truly, I embody, I call my community brilliant beauties. So I totally embody it. But as you were saying it, and I could feel your vibration changing and going higher and higher with it, I know you get it.
I do.
know you get it. I know you get it without any explanation. I know you get it in your core.
I think it's so important that we have these conversations, because I think the more people are exposed to it,
Yeah.
you have those, you're like, oh yeah, where did that thought come from? It's one of my favorite coaching questions is, who taught you that?
Come on.
And all of a sudden you're like, oh, I just thought it was mine. Nope. Somebody taught you that. Somebody taught you to think that way. Somebody taught you that. And the way that you're talking about children, and I mean, human babies are so weird. Like we are the only species that has like such neediness for so many years, right? And in order to survive that, the number one survival mechanism is absorbing and learning how to behave to be safe. That's what we do.
You are Sarah, you don't understand how much on point you are on. My husband actually had to, because I'm super protective. I was way more protecting and nurturing. I had to grow into nurturing for all the reasons, right? And I remember he used to say when my kids were younger, he was like, it's okay. Like they don't need to learn these hard lessons yet. Like it's because I'm like, who touched you? Where were you? Right? Like I was like traumatizing them with information to protect them, especially considering where I worked at in emergency rooms when they were younger and all the things. It was like, there's some things that they just don't need, information about to protect them.
Oh my gosh. I'm in that boat too. I am in the exact same boat, right? We would be at parties. I'm like, where are the kids? Where are the kids? They're like, they're in the bathroom. I'm like, who's in there with them? He's like, good God, woman. I was like, listen, it can happen anywhere, anytime, to anyone, ever. And he's like, that's correct. So let's go check on them. And I'm like having a heart attack, right? I'm like, because we know what can happen. Yeah. And I would imagine working in an emergency room, you know what can happen. And it's finding that balance, I think, and then cleaning it up with them as well as they grow up. Like, yikes. I may have done that a little early with you. Please know that was out of love. Let's talk about how you feel about that. And what did you take from that? And what do we need to have you unlearn from that? And I think as long as we can do that as parents, as humans, as business owners, and continuing to say, oh, I did a thing. You may not have needed that thing. And I think you said that too. I love when you were like, it was like so focusing on someone's ability to expand or their future or their purpose that we can miss moments. And I know, I've certainly done that as well. And I think the most important thing we can do do is to consistently look at our own behavior and be like, "Ooh, was that in their best interest? Was that in my best interest? Let me hold, please." Right. Sort of taking the hot second to look that over.
That part. I mean, don't we do that in friendships?
All the
We
time.
see the potential of someone and we look so far into like, oh, you're so dope, you're so amazing. And you miss the flags of like, stop, wait, hold on.
Yeah. Or can I just be sad right now?
Right.
Like, I just need you to be with me while I'm sad. Right.
Yes.
Yes, I will stop. I will be with you while you're sad, and really
Yes.
taking those cues from each other as humans.
Yes.
Well, honestly, this has just been such a joy. And I think we could have a nice 5-hour long podcast if we really wanted. But
True
because,
story.
people might run away screaming if we do that. Or not. Maybe they'd sit there and be like, do more, do more. But I'd love to know if someone's listening and they're like, oh my gosh, give me more, give me more, give me more. Where can people find you?
The very best place is our parent company, thigpro.com, which is THIGPRO.com. Whenever we're doing something public, we announce it there, from the Balanced Bully podcast to the Lazy Overachiever show that's coming that Sarah doesn't know, but she will be on.
I'm like totally there.
All of it. But everything is there. It's the best place to go.
Oh, I love it. I love it. All right. All right, you guys, you heard it here first. This has just been such a joy. Thank you so much for spending so much time with me today. I can't wait to watch your journey and I can't wait to work with you more in the future.
Yes. Thank you.